You ever look at an old movie, spot a familiar face and think, hold up, is that someone from around here?
Well, believe it or not, back in 1961, residents of Lake County were doing just that when they spotted Nancy Walters on screen at their local movie theater, alongside the king of rock and roll himself.
In the classic Elvis hit Blue Hawaii.
But before she was sipping cocktails on a beach with Elvis Presley,
Before the modeling contracts and movie screens lit up her name in lights, Nancy Walters was just a girl from Lake County, Florida.
a place with deep roots, fast changes, and stories that don't always make the front page, but should.
Some of those stories are heartwarming, some are a little messy, and some you just gotta hear to believe.
From the sun-soaked shores of Lake Dora to the hidden hollers of Umatilla, this is What's Up Lake County.
I'm Jessie Brooks, and along with my co-host Ben Travers, we're diving into the stories that matter in Lake County, Florida. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
No spin, no fluff, just real stories about real people.
Subscribe now. You don't want to be the last to know what's up.
She was born Nancy Driver on June 26, 1933, in Mount Plymouth, a quiet, pine-covered corner of Lake County, known more for its golf courses and pine forests than for producing Hollywood stars. Families grew citrus, prayed together, and hung laundry to dry in the warm summer breeze.
Mount Plymouth was founded in the 1920s by developers who planned to replicate a Scottish resort experience, complete with 4 18-hole golf courses modeled after the famous St. Andrew's Club. But by the 1930s, when Nancy was born, that dream had faded. The Great Depression had set in, and like many parts of rural Florida, Mount Plymouth was transitioning from a resort concept to a modest residential community.
But before Nancy Walters ever stepped in front of a camera, she was already overcoming something most people couldn't imagine.
Her early years were anything but glamorous. When Nancy was just 4 years old, she developed a serious bone infection that left her unable to stand or walk for years.
It was a condition that required long-term care. By the time she was 7, she was spending 8 months in the hospital, undergoing treatment, and likely facing a lot of isolation at an age when most kids are running around the playground.
And that infection didn't go away. She remained unable to stand until her teenage years, meaning she spent nearly a decade of her childhood in recovery, not knowing if she'd ever live what others would call a normal life.
But what makes her story remarkable is what came after. Despite that setback, Nancy went on to become a celebrated fashion model in the 1950s and early 60s.
For Nancy, the spotlight wasn't handed to her. She earned it, step by step, quite literally.
Nancy Walters didn't take a direct path to Hollywood either.
She was working as a secretary in a lawyer's office, and even then, people noticed her. Her co-workers encouraged her to pursue a modeling career. Her look was classic 1950s glamour.
Eventually, she took that advice to heart. Nancy left Florida behind and moved to New York City, where she signed with the Forbes agency, one of the top modeling firms at the time.
It didn't take long before her face was everywhere.
But she didn't stop at modeling. Nancy enrolled in acting school at the Neighborhood Playhouse in Manhattan, a serious training ground for stage and screen.
After completing her training, she made her theatrical debut in a production of Ankles Away. During that run, she caught the eye of a Hollywood talent scout who brought her west for screen tests.
Enter Jack Arnold, a director best known for films like Creature from the Black Lagoon. He was reportedly so impressed with Nancy's dark, good looks, poise, and charm that he cast her in a leading role in the 1958 sci-fi cult classic Monster on the Campus.
That role opened the doors. From there, Nancy built a steady career as a character actor, appearing in everything from musicals to melodramas. Her film credits included Bells Are Ringing, The Singing Nun, and of course, Blue Hawaii.
She also made guest appearances on major shows like 77 Sunset Strip, Gunsmoke, Get Smart, and The Monkees.
Her talents weren't isolated to just the big and small screens. Nancy toured the country as a leading lady in theater productions like The Philadelphia Story, My Fair Lady, A Streetcar Named Desire, and The Mousetrap.
She also stayed active behind the scenes. Nancy was a member of the Screen Actors Guild, involved with the Hollywood Republican Committee, supported the Motion Picture and Television Fund, and served as chairwoman for her local chapters of the American Red Cross and March of Dimes.
In 1958, she was honored as a Deb Star, an annual accolade given to rising young actresses poised for stardom.
Nancy would frequently return to Florida to visit family. One trip home, between filming Blue Hawaii and going to Europe to film Green Helmet, was recorded in the Orlando Sentinel with the story of how Nancy Driver obtained her stage name of Nancy Walters.
It was the result in a mix-up. She had intended to take her mother's maiden name, Waters. But at the conclusion of her tests, when it came time for credit lines, somebody misspelled the names, inserting an L, transforming Waters to Walters. She allowed it to stand. She'd already changed her name once and didn't want to go through it again.
In 1962, she married Lieutenant Paul Warren Payne, a decorated U.S. Navy officer.
In 1967, Nancy made the decision to retire from acting altogether. And what she did next was something few in Hollywood would have expected. She became an ordained minister.
Nancy devoted herself to religious life and charitable causes, becoming deeply active in her faith community,
where she is remembered for her sincerity and commitment to serving others. Her faith wasn't a postscript to her life, it was the foundation for her second act.
After her husband's death, Nancy continued living privately, remaining connected to her church and the service causes she supported for decades.
Nancy Walters died on September 29, 2009, at the age of 76 due to complications from pancreatic cancer. She died in Las Vegas, Nevada, but her story began right here in Lake County, Florida.
Nancy Walters was a cover girl, film actress, a stage star, a servant leader, and a survivor.
From her country home to the sound stages of Hollywood, she carried with her the quiet strength she had built in those early years, recovering from illness in Mount Plymouth.
Nancy Walters wasn't just another pretty face. She was a performer with range, discipline, and depth, and she brought a little bit of Lake County to every role she played.
Got a story Lake County needs to hear?
A memory, a mystery, a moment in history. If it happened here, we want to know about it.
Drop us a comment, send us a message, or tag us in your post. Local news, upcoming events, family legends, forgotten headlines, nothing's off limits.
Your stories are Lake County's story. Let's tell it together. So hit subscribe and let's find out. What's up, Lake County?